Just last month, everyone was running up and down, and almost everyone, was wearing red. Yeah, February is when we celebrate Valentine's Day, the day of love. That's when almost everybody celebrates. I don't know about you. And it's always an interesting thing to see people find loved ones, which they remain as friends or they end up marrying. This is Now Tell Us, and I'm your host, Anthony Morore. Today we have a guest who is here with us, who's going to tell us about finding your true love in 2023. And I don't want to take one more minute because our guest is a dating coach, and she's going to tell us much more of who she is. And I'm excited to learn about this because I know many people who would want to know this. And so, why not join me? And we go and meet our guest today. Her name is Schoen. And I hope I got that right. She'll tell me. So, here we go. Let's go and meet her. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming to Now Tell Us. It's such an honor.
Same here.
Yes. Hey, you're wearing red.
I'm always wearing red.
Wow, that's good. And why is that? Is by choice or
Well, first of all, it's one of my best colors. And
okay?
second of all, it is the color of love.
Yeah. And you're always talking about love. That's a good thing when I mean, everybody's interested with that word, and
Most people.
yeah, not everyone.
Not everyone. No, not everyone wants a partner. It's a choice today. Not everybody wants to be in a relationship. I do know some people. I wrote a book called, most of the people in my area, I live in the Washington D.C. area. They know me. They've known me for a while. I've been doing this work for almost 20 years. And I remember running into one of a guy I knew. He's a buddy, and he knows what I do. We're all in the same kind of social group, and he lives by himself and he's on his own and he's adorable. I'm always wondering why he's not partnered. And then he says to me, we run into each other at an event. He goes, Amy, I'm not motivated. And I'm like, yes, I know. So some people choose to be on their own and some people want to be partnered. And the people who come to me desire partnership. And it could be marriage or not marriage. That's something we work through together as a coach. What is the situation that's best for you? Marriage
Mhm.
is not always the best situation. So that's part of what I take my clients through in terms of my coaching process is do you want marriage or not? I started my new group. I have a group called Meet Your Mate this year, and the first module is about the marriage minded mindset, and we do an exercise called pros and cons of marriage. And
Mhm.
it's very interesting when you say the pros and the cons, and then you see where does the scales tip,
Yeah.
more cons than pros. And it's interesting to see what's scary for them. Some people have never been married, so they have fears that they've seen from their parents or their siblings or their friends. And then there are people who've been married. I have a widow, and she, had a good marriage, and so she's a little more positive about marriage and what it entails, and so it's really about your come from place. Yeah.
Mm. Looking behind you, I see a beautiful photograph. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's my husband. That's an engagement a pre-engagement picture, I think. And so I was the poster child for motivated to marry. I got married, my first marriage, when I was 25, right out of graduate school. And, what do we know? I didn't know anything. And I thought, he was handsome, he was smart, we were going to have a wonderful life together. And I hit 35. There were some choices that were made that were not, that didn't involve me.
Mm-hmm.
My husband, I was again in the DC area. My ex-husband took a job in another city, and we were apart. And then I realized he was not coming back. um, I tried to work on the marriage, but you can't work on a marriage with one person.
Yeah.
And so I found myself divorced in my mid 30s, and that was a heartbreak. I always imagined myself married with a family, and so I was, motivated to marry and wanting to find a new partner with newfound information. And I did work on myself. I actually hired a coach when I turned 40. And he helped me really get clear about the kind of guy I needed to be in relationship with. And I did meet my husband. And he actually helped me see that my husband was the one. And then because of my age and because of our goals, we were engaged in 6 months and married within the year. So I was married. I was 42 when I remarried. So then I was on my motivated to motherhood journey, but that's for another podcast. And so I love helping people who are on this path and looking for the right life partner. And so I did write a book called Get It Right This Time, as well as I have a small ebook called Motivated to Marry. Now there's a better way for dating and relationship.
How long have you been married now to your second husband?
We have celebrated our 20th anniversary last summer. We have a 14-year-old boy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm one of the older moms in the middle school. And so we created a wonderful life together. Yeah.
I've come across people who say that going out there and meeting someone doesn't have to have a coach. I mean, they compare to the ideal that if I can throw water over my body to clean myself, why do I need to be directed how to go and meet somebody and talk to him or her, and how we should relate? Now, but then I come to imagine that each and everything in our life, we need a direction, we need ways to follow, we need tips and guidance and strategies. Otherwise, we may never know, um, unless we hear from people who have been there, done that, experienced it, and come out successful. Now, I love your story. I love your story right now because you have a failure story and you have a success story. So you know what doesn't work and what works.
Well, and I'm a professional coach.
Yeah.
So when I wanted to help other people, when I decided that this was the path I wanted to take, I had another business. I was in the women's clothing business. I was a stylist, image consultant, and I knew that that career was in conflict with my family goals.
Mm-hmm.
So I hired a coach, a career coach, and she said, well, what about a life coach? And I loved it, and I went and got trained and certified. And um, I'm now a professional coach. I have over 200 hours of coach training. So I'm not just giving advice, and
Mm-hmm.
coaching is not advising. It's helping people reveal themselves and see and understand they have choices. So my clients come to me and they are stuck. What they're doing is not working.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a coaching way and there's a consulting way. And I
Mm-hmm.
do wear two hats. because one of the top ways that my clients have met people consistently is through online dating. It's a great tool
Mm-hmm.
because you can be really specific. And 80% of my successfully coupled clients have met through online dating. But you
Mm-hmm.
have to know how to use this tool.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's important is to learn like the ins and outs, to identify scammers, to really put yourself out there authentically. I think that's what I do different than what other dating coaches, and I don't really call myself a dating coach. I call myself a relationship coach because I help people get into relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about the connection. And what people don't see is the connection occurs through values.
Mm-hmm.
And once I work through my clients' values and I do a deep values work with my clients, I identify over 2 dozen values that each of my clients have.
Mm-hmm.
And then I describe them. So we really are clear about what that value is about. And then we utilize that information to understand who do they need to be in relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
some of your values are personal values, meaning they're yours alone. Like, for instance, I have a value, and you might too have this one. I call myself an independent creative entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I like to work. I like to work on my own and create my books and my programs. And, I'm always in creative mode. And
Yeah.
I want to work independently. And that's an Amy value.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need my husband to have that value, but I do need him to support me, appreciate me, and respect me for that value. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I was dating, I'd meet guys and they were like, "Oh, you're cute," and you can see I was pretty cute back then. And then they would see that I'm a serial entrepreneur. And they would see what my life was like and the hours and the commitment, and they'd run the other way because they wanted a different kind of woman in their life, and I don't blame them. You
Mm-hmm.
gotta know what you want and what you can handle. I'm not easy to handle. So I had to find a guy who is flexible and unlucky, I married a man who doesn't need a lot of my time. He's a little introverted, and he likes his alone time, and, he also is he's a supportive partner and helps out with the
Mm-hmm.
family responsibilities. And so, I have friends who are stay-at-home moms taking care of the household, and the husband's working ridiculous hours.
Mm-hmm.
So that man got what he needed, but I was not gonna be that woman. So it never worked out that way. So, yeah, so coaching, I also, it's interesting. So, when we have children and life and stress, I gained a lot of weight. And I hired a dating not a day a nutrition, a diet. I went on a specific diet that had a system that I believed in. I have support. I go get weighed in. I have accountability. And it really gave me a method that works for me. And I actually, in this program, this was a while ago, lost 35 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I needed to do. But I would not have done it without the support and the coaching and the accountability and a system that I believed in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing, you know. My clients come to me, they say, "Okay, I'm gonna try it this way because what I did didn't work."
Mm-hmm.
And so if something's not working, if you're not getting the results you want, my clients are cool people. They're accomplished in their career. They've got everything else going for them. It's just for some reason this part of their life has not um, happened. And
Mm-hmm.
I have people coming to me who've never been married in their 50s, 60s, and 70s,
Mm-hmm.
and they are now in relationships.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the age question.
Well, I have like 2 groups that I
Okay.
work with consistent, and there are outliers, of course, but the women come to me, they're in their mid to late 30s, they're motivated, they wanna have a family, their friends have all gotten married and started having kids, they're feeling left behind, and the men too. And the men come to me, usually they're pushing 40 and, in their 40s and a little bit more. So that's the one group. And the next group are the what I call the people who the career is starting to become part in the back. They would love a life partner. They may be thinking about retiring in the next couple of years or
Mm-hmm.
be retired. So there's the 55 plus, they may be divorced, widowed, never married, and now they're putting more priority about relationship in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, my youngest client is 26 and my oldest client is 77.
And then,
And I work with both men and women. You know, I love the each I love helping women empower themselves to make better choices for themselves, and I love helping men feel more confident and that they can do this. And I love the conversation in my community between the men and women, because some coaches they just deal with men and some coaches just deal with women. And I like I like the interaction. And
mm,
I have a community of people in the motivated to marry community. And not everybody's looking for marriage. I've coined the term seriously searching. It's a
okay.
choice.
Mm,
And there's a time and place to be married, and there's a time and place to have a good committed partnership.
mm. Now, there's this question that keeps going on, it's still to do with age. Now, there's a man who is 35, and the only people around him are in their 50s or 60s, or uh, vice versa. We have a man who is old and he's getting to interact with people who are at a young age, so to say, like in their 20s or 30s. How have you, what's the experience during your coaching sessions? What's your experience?
My experience is people, well, it just so for it's helping people. The top ways my clients meet is through online, because you
Mm-hmm.
can find people and you can see if they're honest, their age range, and hopefully
Yeah.
their pictures are accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually you'll meet this person, whether on Zoom or in person, and you'll see whether their pictures match up. Um, Through introductions, through your network, and I help my clients. I actually teach them how to ask for introductions. There
Okay.
is a process to get a better fit, if you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also to consider who's in their world that can help them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third way is through your activities where you spend your time. So
Mm.
what I'm hearing is that these people are spending time and not meeting people in their age group. So
Yeah.
we would look at how can they meet people in their age group? Or do they want to meet people in their age group?
Yeah, because because you
That's the first
see,
question. So
yeah.
and what is that? So, I've had clients meet people who, sometimes the women are older. Sometimes the women are younger. Um, I've had 10-year difference, for some of my clients. But it's more of a vitality and how people see life, and so, my I had, younger women, sometimes they date up 5, 10 years,
Mm,
you know, or meet somebody that's close to in their age. I'm working with a 35-year-old man, and he met somebody who's in. I said, "Well, how old do you think she is?" And he said, "Yeah, she's about my age." And I
mm-hmm.
said, "Okay, great." I think people end up with people within 5 years of their age, generally, even
Okay.
though they may start, because what you find out is there's different life experiences, there's different points of references.
Mm-hmm.
And you could date someone and you're also in a different place. So you have to have the same life goals. You have to be going in the same direction. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's still working and somebody who's retired has different expectations,
Mm-hmm.
for the older group. And for the younger group, people who want children and people who don't want children, already had their children. That has to line up. So the goals have to line up first. Your
Mm-hmm.
core relationship values have to line up. And then we have things like the must-haves and the would like to haves. Like for me, I love animals. I love cats. And it was a non-negotiable that the man and I had a cat. I wasn't giving the cat up because that cat was my longest relationship since my divorce. Got me through my divorce. I was not giving the cat up. We were a package deal, right? So I had to meet a man. And then I remember somebody said, "Oh, I want to introduce you to this guy. He's single, but he's allergic to cats." I'm like, "No." So
Mm,
my husband, is a cat person. He likes cats, and that was because I. It's really about how you see your life and what's
mm,
important to you, and I like having a little fuzzy animal around.
I get it. And it's good that we are talking this in 2023, how to find your true love. Now, things might have been different years ago, and these are new things happening now. And most of what we are experiencing now happened in the last 3 years when everybody was inside, and we didn't know when we are coming out. But life had to go on.
I
So,
had relationships formed in those
okay.
times. I actually was the busiest because people were home, they weren't traveling, they
Hmm.
were lonely, and my coaching business really ramped up during those 3 years. And people were putting more emphasis on relationships.
Hmm.
So, people before vaccine, they had to go about it a little differently and take their time and actually slowed up stuff. And I
Hmm.
think it was good. And so people got to know each other. I actually had a client in DC who met a woman in Australia, and they kept the relationship going through Zoom.
Hmm.
And then he couldn't travel to Australia, so she was a teacher, and in December, it's their summer. So she had a month off.
Okay.
And so she quarantined, came to Washington. They met, they loved each other. There was immediate, but they had spent the time getting to know each other.
Hmm.
And then she went back and was able to quarantine and go back to work. And then there's the next year, right?
Hmm.
And so timing and being able to travel, and then the vaccine came, and then, there was still some travel restrictions.
Hmm.
And so the following year she came back and they got engaged. And now they got married January of 2020.
Okay.
2022, I mean, 2022. 2022, 2023. They've
Last
been
year.
married, yeah, whatever. They got married. I think it was, yeah, 2022,
Yeah.
and she's here now. Yeah.
That's cool. Now, this goes out to someone out there who's thinking that there's nobody around me that I can date. There's nobody around me that we are in the same alignment, going in the same direction. You can always go online and find them. And I want to imagine that being a coach and doing some research online, there are areas that you can suggest to your clients that they can find serious people that they are going to be in alignment with.
Well, definitely. I mean, one of the things about online dating is that a lot of the sites do put your goals, and the top sites, they do ask, what are you looking for marriage? Are you looking for kids? That's what I love about it, because you can meet somebody at, at a party,
Hmm.
right? But you know nothing about them. You don't know about their goals.
Hmm.
I once spent a weekend in a group. I was in a bicycling group, and we went away for a weekend, and we stayed at a hotel and we did rides, and there was a cute guy, and and then we went off and had like dinner together and got to know each other. It wasn't until the end of the weekend that I found out that he had children. And
Hmm.
not that I was cared about that, because I was actually at that point, I think, okay with men who had children, except I wanted men who were willing to have more kids.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, why did he hide that? Why didn't he tell me that up front? I would have been okay with it.
Hmm.
And that just hit me wrong, because I have a real high transparency value. and just, tell me what it, like, either we're gonna get along and like each other, or we're not, and we'll stay friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's was my attitude. My attitude was, either we're a fit or we're not a fit. And so, yeah, so from that perspective, kind of, people have to know what they want, and they have to be able to recognize it when it shows up. And
Yeah.
my husband and I met 5 years earlier,
Uh-huh.
and I wasn't, and yeah, and there's a readiness factor, and I wasn't ready. I have a fun little quiz. It's mtmquiz.com, where you can see how ready you are for a relationship. Um, and yeah, I mean, we both had to do our work, and then we met up 5 years later, through this biking group, actually.
Okay.
And I was more ready and he was more ready, and it just worked
Mm.
out. So
Yeah,
so you have to do the work, because are you really ready for a relationship? If the right person shows up, would you recognize them?
that's the question. Because maybe you are just there and you don't think about it. You don't think that there is some input that you're going to put into that relationship. So, some of us are waiting for someone to come and knock on our door, and we are home all day. We are not connected to anybody online, and you expect someone is going to ask you out from the blues. It doesn't happen. You've got to be
You don't
proactive.
know where that person is, and today when you meet people, you don't know if they have a girlfriend. Listen, these guys show up to these meetups
Hmm.
and these events and these groups in my area. They have girlfriends at home. They just want coming out to be social with their friends,
Hmm.
to do something. So it has been, I have had clients meet through like hiking groups or stuff like that, but that is the exception. That's not the rule.
Okay.
And you've heard me, and I didn't even mention matchmakers. First of all, they're very expensive.
Hmm.
And second, I only had one client meet through a matchmaker in 18 plus years of doing this work.
Wow.
80% of my successfully coupled clients, the reason is, and not that my clients haven't tried matchmakers, use them, or there's a way to work with them and not pay a lot of money,
Hmm.
because they need um, people to match up with their clients. Yeah, that they don't go deep enough. They just see the surface, the
Hmm.
age, maybe profession, goals. That's it. But
Hmm.
they don't see below that surface, which is what really matters.
Yeah.
And so they're missing the mark. And for them, I mean, they'll tell you about the one, the success stories they've had, but I
Hmm.
think it's a little luck. Where is my clients who've taken the time and done the strategy, they meet wonderful people, and that relationships that last,
Mm.
because they have the everything enough in common. Not everything's going to line up, but you
Yeah.
have enough line up.
Yeah. We don't get 100%. Nobody is 100%. You're not going to be matched with 100% accuracy, but at least you need to be aware of the things that you align in.
What works for you and what doesn't work for you,
Yeah.
and be able to see it sooner than later, so you're not wasting time in the wrong relationship. It's
Mm-hmm.
really sad when people, especially women, come to me and they said, I was in this relationship for 5 years. I was hoping to get married and yada yada, and then it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't not going to happen. And so there is a process, there's a pacing we talk about, there's how long you stay in a relationship if you do want marriage is your goal,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure you're on the same page sooner than later. That's really part of the process that I teach my clients.
That's very good, and we thank you for sharing everything that you've done in this show. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you who may have joined us as we have been going on, or those who get to watch this after we are through, we are talking about finding your true love in 2023. Our guest today is Amy Schoen. Am I saying that right?
Shown. It's good
Oh,
enough.
Schoen? Yeah, I was to ask that in the beginning. And we thank you for sharing everything that you've shared, and I'm aware. I believe that there are people who may want to follow up with you. How can they do that?
Well, my website is the best place to meet me, and I have a lot of free stuff. I have an online dating checklist, and I send out a weekly e-zine with articles, and I have a blog. So motivatedtomarry.com. And not all my clients are motivated to marry. Some are
Mm,
just seriously searching, but it's a good place to start. And I get you thinking about how you feel about marriage. And I think is how you feel about marriage is how you date for marriage. And marriage is not the end goal for all my clients, but it's something that we do talk about.
yeah. So everyone rush to motivatedtomarry.com. She said that's not the only goal there. You can find out how to have a successful relationship, even though your goal is not to get married. So go right there and find out what's there behind them.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, we thank you. And that's just about it on this episode. And we are just about to sign off. But before you go, we always ask our guests to leave us with something that we should always remember. What's that for you?
I think I love the expression "follow your heart." I actually went write in my I have a book. I write lead with your head and follow with your heart.
Lead with your head and follow with your heart. Yes, remember that. Coming from Amy Schoen, lead with your head, follow with your heart. I always remember that. Thank you very much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and that's about it. We thank you very much. This has been Now Tell Us. I've been your host, Anthony Moirore, and together with our guest today, Amy, we're saying bye for now.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.